Hey, you are now listening or watching the Halos in the Infield podcast, sponsored in part by Noble L Works over on 1621 South Sinclair, where you can get discounts by just mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Drink discounts on us, baby. And also by 714 Tickets. The price you see is the price you get, and you also get 10% additionally off in the Apply Now code once you order your tickets just by mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Now enjoy the show.
In the land of last shores, I play my part with the halos in the infield. I'll make my mark. I'm the Lone Star Halo, shining bright tonight. In a sea of rangers, I'll stand and fight with the halos in the outfield under stadium lights. From Texas to Anaheim, we'll soar to new heights. We'll soar to new heights.
And welcome in, everybody. My name is Fernando, the Lone Star Halo, joined here by Taylor Blake Ward. Many of you guys know him, and I mean, if you're following us, you're probably following Taylor on X. Taylor, thanks for joining us. I almost said thanks for having us. Thanks for giving us your time is really what I should be saying.
Absolutely. Did you guys use AI for that intro, or who is that?
We did, AI.
That was interesting. I like that. And yeah, Noble Ale Works. I'm gonna have to pop over there. I'm in.
Yeah, it's right there, pretty close to where all those warehouses are in between the Honda Center and Angel Stadium. So
I'm gonna have to make my way.
Have you been out to any Angels games this year? I know you're.
Yeah, quite a few.
Okay, yeah, because I know you used to make more trips down to Victorville when that team was still High Desert Mavericks were still going, right?
So I was working with them. I was actually director of media relations for them for a while. Okay. And that was in 2012. And then I was covering Angels home games. I was making 60, 70 home games a year for a while. And then, doing some road trips early in the process. And then I got let go by that position in 2017 with Scout and 24/7. That was a Fox affiliate, and Fox. Well, I won't go into that stuff. Yes, I have been to more than a handful of games. I'm working with the Sporting Tribune now, working with the Ross Marchese, and we've got a great staff that's able to kind of be localized a little bit, and it's a little cheaper sending them than it is sending me. From Lake Arrowhead, and they're all based in Fullerton, Orange County area, so it's easier for them. But no, I've definitely made a handful or more games this year, and it's good to be back out at the park. I miss back when I was doing, it was 60, 70 games or home games a year. I was taking personal time off kind of thing, but if they were playing at home, I was definitely there, and even traveling on occasion was a blast. So I definitely miss that.
I never knew that you worked with the High Desert Mavericks. That I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was so it's a funny story. It's I was 20 years old, going through some classes locally with a school, and didn't really have a plan for any future. And I was talking to a guy at a local minor league hockey team, and he says, "Hey, we're having a job fair." And I went. Mavericks called me in for a position, and they brought me on as a sales intern. And at the end of the day, the general manager wanted to talk to me, and I thought I was getting let go. I thought I was getting fired. And he says, "We need a director of broadcasting and media relations." I said, "Sweet. I have no idea what that means, but go. Let's go." And I spent 2012 with them, and then they brought me on for some broadcasts in 2013. Got to call a no-hitter, which was amazing because it was the only one that ever happened in Adelanto area. And it was really fun. I think I missed that more than I'm not the biggest fan of the High Desert. I think people that live in the High Desert aren't really big fans of the High Desert, but
that's very fair.
I genuinely miss it though. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a great time in my life, and I really miss that 2012 summer and also the year after.
I spent a lot of time over there because I would do a lot of work in Victorville for about 2 days a month. So, Victorville in that area, I used to have to I did pest control out there, and there was a Circle K pretty close to the stadium, if you remember where that is.
Yeah.
I have done very, very many jobs in that Circle K. and I'll leave it at that. Stater Brother Field, not exactly my favorite in minor league baseball. You know what? Other than Bakersfield, and I grew up.
That is true. That is very true.
Bakersfield getting like those splinters on your ass in the pool.
The problem with Bakersfield is they built it in the wrong direction, so they couldn't start games in the summer until like 8 o'clock because the sun peaked right down the batter's eye.
Absolutely.
So until 8 o'clock, you had the sun literally staring at you when you were in the batter's box, and so they'd have to start games late. And I liked it. It's an old military park. It was fun. Actually, both of them kind of were. I mean, that was the whole reason they built Maverick Stadium, Stater Brothers Stadium out in Adelanto on 395 was that they had that military base just down the road that they thought was going to grow. And if you look back, like early 90s, the attendance was off the charts, and Bruce Bochy was the manager of all people. He was the first manager of the High Desert Mavericks. And
I don't think that guy's going to work out, though. He won't last very long in baseball.
No, not a great career for Bruce. No. It was a blast. It really, really was fun. I miss it a ton.
I accidentally kicked you. Didn't kick my little stand. Okay, well, now that we've talked minor league baseball, we've talked about your background. For anybody who might not have known who Taylor Blake Ward was, let's talk a little bit about the state of the Angels. This is a team that you cover, and you've covered them for years, to say the least. So right now, the Angels are obviously in a unique situation, right? For the first time in probably our lifetime, for the first time in this millennium, we can truly say that the Angels don't really have an exact direction right now because they continue to not admit that they're in the middle of a rebuild. So where are you personally on that? If you had to pick a direction you think this organization is going, it's definitely a rebuild, though they won't admit it directly, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they're in the early stages. I think you have core players. There's no denying that you have young core talent. Chase Silseth is a guy that I feel like gets lost in the translation, but you got Chase Silseth, Reed Detmers, Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe, throw Nolan Shonwell into that mix. They definitely have this young core of very good players. And, especially Zach Neto and Logan O'Hoppe, key positions. And I think Reed Detmers, if he can get out of his head a little bit, I think he's, a key member to your rotation that you can build with. So they have those core members, but you gotta build on top of it. And, Mike Trout, obviously, still when he's healthy, is one of the best players in baseball, but one of the best hitters in baseball. Just got to get him on the field. No idea what you're going to get out of Anthony Rendon, starting with the health. And he's been decent when he's on the field. It's not a $35 million a year kind of player, but he's been decent when he's healthy. It's just I think he's got less than 200 games over the last 4 years with the Angels, and most of that came in 2020. It's rough. So, there's a lot of things that kind of go into it. But I think rebuild is more of kind of the term that you're going to be leaning towards. And I think the bigger problem is, you aren't 100% sure who your general manager is going to be at the end of this season. I can speak personally on it. I hope that Perry Manassian is back. I think he's done, a good job for the state that he's been given, kind of thing, with ownership being the way that it is, and giving him a little bit of a left hook. But, I think you give Perry another 5 years, you're going to start seeing things. But a lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear 5 years. And the first person that really doesn't want to hear that is Artie Moreno and the ownership group.
Absolutely. I mean, the tough thing is you look at Billy Epler's first 4 years. You look at Perry Manassian's first 4 years. They both have some very, very positive marks, right? When you think Billy Epler, you think about getting one of the most coveted, international free agents of all time. Honestly, it's fair to say the most coveted international free agents of all time at that time.
Yeah, top three.
Signed Mike Trout to a lifetime contract, which at that time was the most desirable player in Major League Baseball. Okay? We're talking about the Andrelton Simmons trade, which was, if you think about it now, highway robbery for the Angels. Sean Newcomb never really materialized. Eric Ibar didn't do much in Atlanta, and Andrelton Simmons we got his absolute prime, was one of the best shortstop consistently in Major League Baseball during that, 5 years?
Mhm.
So some very, very high positives there. The biggest negative, 0 playoff appearances, 0 500 seasons. But you look at Perry, the same exact negatives. But when you think about the positives, you have Neto, Shanuel, but we're also hoping that these kind of guys are going to materialize long term. We like what we've seen out of them, but it's still early for those kind of guys. Same with the Logan O'Hoppe trade, right? So definitely positives and negatives on both sides, both camps there. But I think the biggest issue has been that this organization hasn't necessarily committed to a direction for a long period of time. I think you and I would agree with, if you're continuously changing your managers, if you're continuously changing your general managers, that makes it really hard for teams to get into a rhythm. It makes it hard to build a culture because there is none, because you're not giving time for one to materialize.
Yeah, and we live in an era and in a current world state where if you don't get things done in a very short period of time, you're viewed as a failure, and that's not the reality of it. And it's tough. Baseball is if you get hired in baseball, you're hired so that you can get fired. That's a long term comment that's been made by plenty of people that have worked in baseball. You get hired so that you can get fired, and the next guy in line, right? Um, you know, Everyone talks about how long it takes to rebuild a farm system. It takes 5 years. Um, so how is a general manager going to be able to assess a rebuild with only a 4 or 5 year contract? Right? It's like everything comes at the tail end, and then you're fighting to keep your job again. The one consistent that has been through and through for all these problematic seasons is ownership. And I've said it many times over. Artie Moreno has been nothing but nice to me. He has not talked to the media in an extended period of time, and that includes myself. But Artie and Carol have always been nice to me, so I have nothing negative to say about them as people. But Artie Moreno has brought in people that he believes are the smartest in the business to come and run what is supposed to be an exclusive baseball team. A high dollar, large market, high money baseball team. And the only consistent that's run through it is the ownership group, and it's all floundered that way. So I think, yeah, what if you would have given Billy another 5 years? Jerry Dipoto, right? What would Jerry have done with the time that he would have been permitted? And that's a whole different subject in itself. That's a huge subject. Jerry walked away, right?
Yeah.
That's a different deal in itself. But what if you had given Billy another 5 years? What if you give Perry another 5 years? The thing I was talking to about last week with somebody is I said, with Perry, right now he's got kind of 2 lanes, right? One lane goes straight to Artie, say, this is my 5 year plan. If Artie says I need it to be in 3 years, he says, okay, give me 1 day, goes back, writes it out. This is my 3 year plan to get us into a winning scenario. Try and get us to a World Series, right? Whether it's World Series, playoffs, whatever the goal is, right? It should always be the World Series, but whatever the goal is. The other thing is, here's my plan. And Artie says, I don't like it. Say, okay, thank you. If you want to sign me back, I'm back. But if not, then okay, thank you. I'm going to go on to the next, right? So it's kind of, I think, and that's another thing, is everyone's going to sit there come August, September, and everyone's going to be like, well, we don't know if Perry is, general manager next month or not, right? It's a 50-50 bet, right? He either is or he isn't. So it's not like, we worry about so much ahead of ourselves, but yeah, Perry just has to come up with what is remaining with either the current plan that he has with this core group, or he has to come in with another 5 year plan. So I don't know. Like you said, the direction is tough because I think if you follow the Angels enough, you see the direction that Perry and his staff want to go in and the direction that they want to run with. But right now, it's definitely not showing up on paper or showing up on the field, and that's the problem. Is when you don't see it directly in front of you, it becomes very problematic.
So I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot with this question, and so Jerry Dipoto, Billy Epler, Perry Manassian. You said so yourself. The only thing consistent there has been the ownership, and a lot of people, especially Angels fans, have deemed so far all 3 of those general managers as failures. Like you've said, because of the lack of long-term playoff success, things like that, continuously bad farm systems, the list goes on and on. His ownership to blame for the lack of success because, maybe ownership's a little too involved.
To a degree, absolutely. And maybe even more so to that degree than you would put on the front office, right? Before you would put it on Jerry, or because you look at Jerry, right? I always go back to this with Jerry. Everyone talked about why was the farm system so bad? Why couldn't they do this? Jerry had 2 first-round picks, 2 ever, like when during his time with the Angels, right? It was Sean Newcomb, Taylor Ward. I think he might have been involved with CJ Cron, but like he was there for a couple of years. He had 2 first-round picks because of what ownership decided was more important. And heck, dude, Albert Pujols brought the Angels $250 or $500 million in TV contracts at half the cost. Absolutely, why wouldn't you do it? Right? Absolutely, this is great. Josh Hamilton, CJ Wilson was actually a lot better than people will ever give him credit for.
He doesn't get the credit he deserves.
No,
But
he actually was really good. But I mean, yes, ownership is definitely on part of the blame, but also, hey, these guys didn't produce, right? I mean, Jerry did to some sense before he left, but yeah, Billy never made the playoffs, never made over 500. Perry never made the playoffs, never made over 500. So yeah, I mean, ownership is definitely where I'm throwing the finger a little bit more. If I'm using 5 fingers, I'm using 3 right at ownership, but you have to find where those other 2 are. And, as good a job as I think they've tried to do, the field speaks for itself, right? The results speak for themselves. And like I said, I hope that Perry is back because I see his view. I see the direction that he's lining up with, and I think that's going to be successful, but it definitely has not happened yet. So, yeah, you have to throw a little bit on him and say the results are not good. They progressively kind of got worse to a degree. What's the reason for it? So to go really long-winded on your simple answer, kind of. Mostly, I guess.
Yeah, the tough thing is, I think at the end of the day, when we're all honest with ourselves, like you said, 3 fingers have to be directly pointed at the ownership. You can't fully place it on ownership because there are a multitude of reasons, right? I mean, these general managers still have to make all of the right draft picks. And then even at that, you have a few that have to pan out. And really that hasn't happened too much. And people
just real quick too, and just to say this, Artie Moreno definitely invested the money. It's not that he never put the money, because Artie Moreno's no idiot. He knows that he's a businessman. That's point 1. Artie Moreno is a businessman in the entertainment industry. But he knows the better the entertainment, the more profit comes in. So if you're going to go out and spend the money to go win a World Series so that you're bringing in more money for yourself, it's a smart move. But where that money was spent. So, no, that's where I kind of sit and say, yes, Artie Moreno has a ton of blame because of the decisions he's made, but also he has made the attempt to put a financial system and a high-level financial system towards the Angels as well.
Look, Taylor, we have, in our lifetimes, have seen the evolution of baseball. The big scary Yankees no longer exist, right? You can't buy championships anymore. When I was a kid, the Yankees were the evil empire, right? They won all the time. They won everything. They took everyone's favorite players, and they continuously did that. You can do that to an extent in Major League Baseball, and that can just about get your name written in Sharpie for the playoffs. Look at the Dodgers. You can always Sharpie their name in there. But eventually, it's going to catch up with you, or at the least, you're not going to be able to buy yourself a championship like you used to 15, 20 years ago. Well, so Artie Moreno's way of thinking might have worked when he first bought the team because that's when that kind of winning was still around. But, really over the last 15 years, we've seen the most effective way to win is full rebuilds. The Royals, the Cubs, the Giants. These are teams that used free agency to patch up holes in the correct areas and use their farm system to build true pillars in the organization. And that's just something the Angels haven't really fully invested in lately.
I like your point, and I'm going to disagree to a little bit of an extent. When you look at the Dodgers, you look at the Astros, and the Astros went through a full rebuild, but financially, right? The Dodgers have used the free agent market to a high end, especially Shohei Ohtani and a lot of premier free agents. But at the same time, they are producing from their development staff consistently. The Yankees go and spend a ton of money, nothing wrong with it. But you look, I was just talking about this. Like this was like 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. But I was saying they were talking to me about the Yankees, and they said, everyone hates the Yankees, and I said, why? And they looked. I said, go look at that 25-man roster. I said, how many are free agents? And they looked, and there was like 6, 7, right? And it's like, so you've got 18 guys that are homegrown players with the Yankees that are going to push them towards a playoff spot. Or you've got the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers have 15 of the 25 guys, or even, you bring in Mookie Betts using your farm system. So it's like, how many of these guys have you brought in utilizing your development staff? So, yeah, I agree. Free agency is not the end all anymore, and spending the most money is not the end all. But if you can spend the money, develop, and utilize all of your assets to the best of your capabilities, you're going to be successful. And even though the Dodgers have, depending your opinion of their 2020 tournament win or World Series win, whatever you call it, they have still not won a World Series, excluding that 1 year, but they also are the favorite to win the World Series every year, and they get to a deep playoff run every single year. The Yankees, maybe a little different, but it's someone like you said, you can write them down. They haven't won a World Series in a long time, but at the same time, you're consistent with it.
2009, was that the last year the Yankees won?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if you ask me right now, I think 2024 is a pretty decent looking year for them.
They look good. They definitely look good if I'm being unbiased. Now, but my point is a team like the Dodgers, you said so yourself, they have continuously pumped out young talent. And, if a guy goes down with injuries, they have the ability to have these guys from the minor leagues step up and produce, because the Dodgers are, an organization that at least since, who was the previous owner's name who ran into the ground? Frank McCourt. Kind of after he's left, the Dodgers' new front office has put a heavy emphasis on the minor league system. I mean,
put money towards development. It's playing, and that's one big thing that is always mentioned about is the Angels have one of the smallest scouting staffs in all of baseball. They have some of the lowest funding when it comes to development. Absolutely. So yeah, you look at the real problem of why is the farm system so poor? Why is it this? They've got 6 pro scouts total. 6 pro scouts. They do have a full amateur staff, but how strung out are you? And you're sending your entire staff to go see these guys, which is fine. Every team does it, but on a regular basis. They're sending their amateur, their pro, their international, their front office staff to go see amateur talent. And when you aren't spending money and you aren't investing in the right places, that's where the mistakes are. And where those decisions made is at the top. So that's where I put more of the blame on Artie and the ownership group. Is they are spending the money, and you have to give them credit for spending the money. But when you're not spending money in the right places, it's not going to show. So, and that's where it's the blend of 3 fingers as opposed to 5. Yeah. The general manager still has to step in and say, "Hey, we're going to do the best of our capabilities," but the production shows you are not winning. So,
the last thing I'll say on it, because somebody tells me we can do a full series about this, is just the simple fact that. For years, the Angels were continuously behind in terms of treatment, even of the minor leaguers. You had other organizations that were routinely providing all 3 meals. And that sounds like something that you shouldn't even have to bat an eye on. The Angels were providing the bare minimum up until a couple of years ago, which was a single meal. There was other teams like the Pirates have always had the ballpark village where, their players were living in these dorms. And yeah, that's not ideal either. But when your players don't have to worry about housing or sleeping 5 or 6 to a room, they're able to produce more.
Well, and it would have still been that way if Major League Baseball hadn't stepped in, and that's not just the Angels; that's across all of minor league baseball and every.
There's a
But
lot of other organizations that have always went above and beyond. And
Right.
yeah, they're not providing mansions for their players, but they were providing, hey, two to a room kind of thing, or they were providing, meals during spring training. It's just little things like that because minor leaguers don't get paid during that stretch of time.
Mhm.
So those meals make a big difference. And that's the reason why you're not seeing as much minor league talent over the last, 10, 15 years from this organization as you were in some others.
Yep.
Yeah, I digress. So let's talk a little bit about the draft. That's one of the biggest reasons we wanted to bring you on. Now, to transition us into that, let me ask you this. Now, the Major League Baseball draft is interesting, right? The NBA draft, the NHL draft, and the NFL draft. You have a very good chance of seeing some of those top picks the very next season, right? In NBA and NFL, of course, you're going to see those guys, but even in the NHL, top 15 picks, you're probably going to see them next year. With Major League Baseball, it's a very, very slow burn. A lot of these guys take 3 to 4 years in some cases to get up. So, what do you like about covering this, knowing that whoever the Angels pick might not be here for years?
Well, if the Angels pick someone, they're going to be upset. No, no. We can touch on that too. I'm sorry. I know I got myself in trouble there. No, the unpredictability. It's there's so much that goes into it too because of the finances, especially the finances are such a big part of the draft. Is these slot bonuses and how much you have in your bonus pool, the restrictions, the limitations. It's really interesting. And also the unpredictability because of those finances that are put on you. And, teams are going to, you mentioned it. If your NFL team needs a running back or a defensive tackle, right, you're going to take a defensive tackle at a value pick. But in NBA, you need a number 4, a small forward or something, right? You're going to take that. NHL, it's reasonably similar. Maybe if you're center heavy or defenseman heavy, you might take a forward or something like that, or a winger. But baseball draft, if you're drafting for need, you're doing it wrong, and you're doing it really wrong. You have to take what is the best talent on the board, and also best talent based on what your scouts see on a guy that, like you said, is years away, not someone that's there tomorrow, but years away. And there's so much unpredictability about it, and it's really, I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, okay, I say I love it. I call friends all week long saying I hate my life. I can't stand myself right now. It's all draft week, but no, I really do enjoy it. It's a blast doing that.
Are you coming this year to the draft?
To Arlington? No.
Okay, I live in Fort Worth. Fort Worth.
I know you do, and I'm sorry that I say this. Any chance I have to not go to Texas, I'm gonna take that opportunity.
Yeah, you know what? Stay in California, man. It's better.
Yeah, no comment.
So, yeah, that's that. I've always enjoyed the behind the scenes of baseball. I love the construction of teams. I love seeing these guys develop. I love going to minor league games. I love minor league baseball. Honestly, in most cases, I prefer to go to minor league games over major league games, just because you're always going to see those guys running balls out. You're always going to see them going hard for balls, in the hole, trying to make that play. Why? Because these guys want to get to the next level. Luckily now they're not, starving, so they're trying to, make the next jump so they can actually get on a 40-man and get paid. But let's talk a little bit about your article that was released. About almost a week ago now? About
the mock draft. Yeah, it was Monday. It was on a Monday. Gonna say 2 weeks back now. Gonna say 2 weeks, roughly.
Okay, when is your next article coming out about your 2.0?
That is I have my email open right now with a lot of that same question from a lot of people that I work for. So
Okay,
I'm probably so we are 3 weeks out from the draft as of recording. Actually, the Angels are going to pick right about now, 3 weeks from now. Probably next week. And I think I explain it in my first mock is, you know, I was a month and some out. It was like 50 days out from the draft. There's tons of information. It's just what's useful. And if you're not using useful information as your sourcing and putting out just information, you're just putting out noise or information or guessing. That's not really great for the reader, and I don't think it's fair. So I put out, when I have useful information is when I put out a mock draft. And it's different. Everyone has a different. Some people have their editors and they're the people they work for saying we need a mock draft this week, right? We need it right now. That's fine because that's part of your job. That's what you have to do. Luckily, with the Sporting Tribune, they don't push that on me. They ask plenty. I had someone asking me in March to do a mock draft for baseball, and I said, like, you really want to put that information out there on the site? And we had that conversation, and it came to an agreement. Once we have real useful information, that's part of journalism, right? You don't want to put out false information, and you have to kind of go through everything. So I have a little bit more information over the last 2 weeks that has kind of it's not going to change it significantly, but it's going to be enough to where I can put out useful information with this mock draft that is going to be as accurate as I can possibly make it. And hopefully the readers can comprehend that is that, Joe Blow is not someone that I'm just going to throw into a mix for whatever reason and have him be the Miami Marlins pick at 16 just because whatever, right? So I want to have it to where everything is useful, everything is sensible and makes sense based on what information I've received from, scouting staffs, directors, agents, especially, and you have to blow through what is when they're blowing smoke, when they're doing things, and agents are really good at that. Kind of banging my head against the wall with one or two guys here, but no, it's you just want to put out the right thing. And so, yeah, I think about a week from now, right around July 1st area is probably going to be my 2.0, 3.0, probably the weekend of the draft, the Friday, Saturday of the draft, and then throw out on the day of just a names only kind of thing as a 4.0 ish. And then we're in it, then we're right in it.
All right. So two picks I want to touch on. Number one is the obviously number one pick. So Travis Bazana. He seems to be what everyone's projecting to be the number one overall pick. Now, what's he bringing out of Oregon State, in your opinion?
A pretty complete hitter profile. This is a guy that is incredible pitch recognition, incredible ability to stay within the zone. His ability to make contact and intentful hard contact that's going to run into real power. He's a little smaller, maybe like a 6-foot guy, so it's not like he's 6'5" and just tanking home runs, but a 6-foot guy that can hit home runs, get on base. He's pretty quick too. He steals some bags. His only flaw is that his actions on the infield are probably limited to second base. Maybe you try him at third, but I think he's a second baseman in the future. And if that's his only knock, he's a really good baseball player. I mean, not because of this was way before the Cleveland attachment and the number one overall pick. Very similar to Jason Kipnis when Jason Kipnis was at full health. Very similar player, and not that Jason Kipnis is going to be a Hall of Famer by any standard, or would have been when he was a healthy player, but just a remarkably gifted and someone that's going to impact your lineup every day.
Do you think he's a guy who's pretty close to big league ready once he's drafted?
Fairly, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he was up, calendar year kind of thing. Go and try and compete for a job out of spring training, probably not win one, and progress through next year and see where he kind of develops with the bat and how quick it comes along. But definitely a guy by like 2026, I could see really being a major leaguer with definitely a rookie, but a rookie of the year kind of player as a performer, pretty immediate through and through. So a year and a half kind of thing, I don't think would be outrageous at all.
What do you think it says about a lot of these guys who have been drafted, these big name guys who have been drafted over the last, 2 or 3 years, who have faster roads to the show. I'm sure you've noticed that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of immediate now impact in baseball. I personally, I'll get myself in trouble. I think baseball has changed a lot. I try not to be an old man about this and yell at the clouds, but if you can run into a homer and strike out 150 times a year, you take those 30 runs productive from the home runs and worry about the 150 outs later. And if you can strike out 150 guys, but you walk 60 of them or 70 of them, no big deal, right? And I probably is old man screaming at the clouds, right? And I'm okay with that. But I think with Paul Skeens is a special one. It's a different kind of thing with Paul Skeens. Lefties especially are going to come up quick, but it's like Wyatt Langford, right? Everyone was surprised that he hadn't hit a home run until a week or two ago, or however long ago it was. And it's like, this kid is a year removed from college. He was playing the College World Series this time last year, and I think Wyatt Langford is going to be a terrific baseball player. But it's the same as Nolan Shonwell. I mean, I understood what the Angels did last year. They did not have a first baseman on the depth chart. This is your guy at second or double A. He's performing remarkably well in a small sample. Give him the shot, get him up there, let him see what it's like, right? But to kind of hand him at the job out of spring training without any real competition, that was where I was like, this guy could have used 6 months to a year in double A or triple A or high A, and it would have been really beneficial for him. And I think we're seeing it now because, I think it's really impressive what Nolan is doing with the minimal development. Now, saying that, he has not been a very productive major league hitter, but I still think it's impressive. It's just the on paper performance isn't great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think losing levels of development is insane. That's a Major League Baseball decision that I thought was egregious, and I mean, another reason to get rid of the clown that's running Major League Baseball at the moment. But
You're gonna get another desist order.
What's that?
That last time, remember?
Cease and desist, buddy. Yeah.
About that.
Okay, sorry. Screw that clown.
Yeah, right.
So no, I think there's a lot of things wrong with development across Major League Baseball. I think there's a lot of things wrong with some of the things that are going across Major League Baseball, and I think that's a reason why we're seeing kids go straight from college to the majors when, in reality, if you look at track record and you look at a lot of things, the guys that spent time in development are the guys that are doing really well in Major League Baseball. So just my 2 cents.
Absolutely. I agree with you. The term that we use on this podcast a lot is, especially with a lot of these younger pieces that the Angels are looking to be pillars that we mentioned earlier, is they're kind of building the plane as the plane's in flight because Nolan
like
is having to figure it out. Zach Neto is having to figure it out. I mean, he started with that aggressive leg kick, and now he's slowly phasing that out more and more. Nolan Shanuel always had a great eye, but now they're like, hey, well, maybe he'll have some power too. And it's just not his game yet. So there's a lot of these guys are having to figure it out. Really, the only kid who I think is fully deserving of being there right now, and that's not to say that Nolan Shanuel and Zach Neto should. I guess what I'm trying to say is they didn't get ample time to develop. They could benefit from a handful of at-bats in the minor leagues. But I think O'Hoppe is worthy of being there right now because he had already been in the minor leagues with the Phillies for quite a while.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a guy he had almost 300 games development, 1,200 plate appearances in development, right? Zach, I will say this about Zach. I didn't think he was as advanced as he is. I mean, the dude is like the third best shortstop in the American League this year, behind Bobby Witt and that kid in Baltimore. Gunner. I mean, I got to give it to Zach. Zach is way more advanced than I thought, and also changes the entire system of the Angels because he's a shortstop, and the Angels didn't have a shortstop at any point for the last couple of years since Andrelton. And even Andrelton's last year was kind of iffy, like it wasn't like outstanding. But no, I think Zach totally changes the Angels entirely. I think he's a leader. I think he's a total stud, and I'm blown away at how advanced the bat has come along and how he's kept pace with the game. especially coming from Campbell. And I'm not going to knock Campbell because Campbell has produced. They've developed at the college level just as well as anyone else across college baseball. But the fact that he wasn't a SEC or ACC or Big 12 or Pac-12 player, that was really impressive to see him staying with the pace of the game defensively and offensively as well.
Yeah, I love Zach Neto's glove. I definitely think he has some gold in his future. That he's definitely shown flashes of being a solid defensive shortstop. Speaking of shortstops, let's talk about your article and who you're projecting at the current moment. Who's going to get drafted 8th by the Angels is J.J. Weatherholt out of West Virginia. So for anyone who hasn't read your first article yet, go ahead and make your defense.
But right now, let's just say that was 2 weeks. Let's just say that was 2 weeks ago, and a lot of things have changed over the last 2 weeks. Let's just go with that. No, I mean, so JJ Weatherholt is. There are about 8 to 10 guys at the top of this class, and I keep mentioning the 8 because the high school players have so many questions with them between Bryce Rayner and Connor Griffin. Griffin of Louisiana, Mississippi. Outfielder, Bryce Rayner right here in the LA region, shortstop, third baseman, infielder, whatever you want to call him. So realistically, there's 8 guys. And, this was before Braden Montgomery, the Texas A&M outfielder, broke his ankle. So he's, and his status isn't going to drop significantly. He could still maybe even go in the top 5. But I think, just riddling it is, you look at Cleveland, right? They're going to dictate the rest of the draft. Weatherholt's even in play at number 1 pick. It's all based on the finances, and the way I would explain it right now when it comes to Cleveland, I'll write this up, is, Cleveland has $10.56 million to work with that first overall pick. Now, if they can get a guy that can sign for $8.5 million, you're looking at an extra $2 million in bonus funds that you can put towards your 36 pick. And, that's so you'd be looking at $4.5 million. And then if you take seniors at the end of the second day, instead of spending the $800,000 that you have at the tail end of the draft, you spend $200,000. There's another $600,000 that you have laying around. You could offer that guy at the 36 pick somewhere around $5 to $6 million. So instead of taking the number 1 overall pick financially, you could take it and move it to like the number 4 pick financially and the number 12 pick financially instead of 1 and 36. So instead of going 1 and 36, you're going like 4 and 13. So that's kind of, but I'm totally digressing on that. But that's, Weatherholt is in that category. But basically my explanation was that the Angels have a big, wide net because they're picking at number 8. It's the same as St. Louis ahead of them. It's the same as Pittsburgh behind them. There's a huge net of players that could fall. And, however the 7 picks ahead of the Angels goes is going to dictate what they do. So, the only name I would cross off right now is Travis Bazzana, realistically. And maybe Jack Caglianone out of Florida. Even Charlie Condon, I think it's a small chance, just won the Golden Spikes Award. Maybe even could go first overall, but, he's even someone that might end up falling towards 8. I doubt it, but, it's like when I'm explaining that going through, it's, the Angels are going to have a big open window of available picks. And it's going to be top of the chart, right? It's going to be one of those top 8 is going to be somewhere at the top of the board, even if it's the 8th guy. I think I mentioned it. Nick Kurtz is a first baseman that's involved there. And I mentioned you don't draft for need, but you just drafted a guy that you believe is going to be a franchise first baseman and Nolan Shonwell. So I moved off of him. And that's the only reason I moved off of him. I think the Angels would have tons of interest in Nick Kurtz. Hagen Smith is a pitcher, a left-handed pitcher from Arkansas.
Is Nick only a first baseman at the moment?
What's that?
Is Nick only a first baseman at the moment?
Nick Kurtz is pretty much only a first baseman. He's a lefty throw, lefty hit. So you could try Nolan Shonwell or Nick Kurtz in the outfield if it came to that scenario. But I think I was just making it really simple for myself at that time too. And I mentioned that I played it very straightforward. The Angels definitely could have interest in Nick Kurtz, and he's a name that has come up. But I just, for my own mental health. I just took the first baseman out and had another guy sitting there, right? And that's kind of what I'm saying. The Angels definitely have guys that would be quote unquote underslot guys that might go picks 10, 11, 12 or something. And even those guys are getting a lot of noise up towards the sixth pick. James Tibbs out of Florida State, Trey Savage out of ECU, East Carolina. Those are two names that you could maybe even call underslot or something like that. It's only going to save the Angels. The difference between maybe getting like Weatherholt or Kurtz and Tibbs and Savage, maybe a couple 100,000, maybe. It's not like a huge financial difference. But at the same time, Savage or Tibbs might not even be available at that point because they've got suitors ahead. So I did make the decision on Weatherholt because of the Angels really like hitters. The hit tool is going to be their influence. They believe power can come. I wish they would maybe put a little more emphasis on defense a little bit. And not that Weatherholt couldn't play shortstop, but he's a second baseman in the future. And this is not a draft where you're going to get a premier defender at the top. I think Vance Honeycutt is probably the first guy that's going to stick up the middle that's going to be taken in this draft. But it is a ton of first basemen, left fielders, third baseman. It is not like one of those drafts where you're getting a well-rounded player that's going to be a five-star guy or a five-tool guy. Defensively, this is one of the weaker drafts I've really ever seen.
So Weatherholt has about almost just under 200 total games in all levels under his belt. So with that being said, let's hypothetically say he is the 8th overall pick for the Angels. You said he would probably be shifted over to second base. How quickly could we see him at the major leagues, considering the fact that the Angels have been very, very quick to promote these guys?
I think the Angels' philosophy is going to change a little bit. There was some serious urgency. Get Shohei Ohtani to the playoffs. It's very plain, black and white, right? That's no longer a necessity. So getting guys to the majors in a heartbeat is not something the Angels, I don't think, are looking at anymore. I think that's a different avenue, a different path. So, but in the scenario of JJ Weatherholt, I think the way that he has an ability to hit, and if you do move him to second base pretty immediately, right, and get him moving over there, you don't have to focus on the defensive development at shortstop. You can focus on a little bit of second base where he's a little more natural and a little more fluid. I could see him being up in a year. The way that his ability to hit and his advanced skill set, definitely a guy I could see up in a year. But another feeling with same as Bazana. I think Travis Bazana and JJ Weatherholt are pretty similar players. I think Bazana has a little bit more power. I think Weatherholt's a little bit better of a hitter. I think they both have great pitch recognition. I think they're both very advanced. So realistically, I could see them on a completely level path. And when it comes to value, I think I really like Travis Bazana. I like the way he swings the bat. I think I'm pretty obsessed with him. I think I've made it loud and clear. If you followed me. But I don't think JJ Weatherholt is. I wouldn't call him a discount Travis Bazana. I would call him like the fingernail short of Travis Bazana kind of thing.
So does he have? Would you say JJ has the same comp of a Kipnis?
I think it's a little bit different of a profile just because I think Bazana has a little more power and I think Weatherholt is a better hitter. The name that keeps coming up with Weatherholt is Nico Horner, the Cubs kid. Okay. I don't know how much I really buy into that. But I think, when you hear it enough, right, that you can at least get a name that profiles to it. And I don't just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean that it's not a similar profile. I think it is a similar profile. So, it's Jason Kipnis or Nico Horner, right?
Okay, fair enough. Now, you brought up your Savage, and if you look at MLB's most recent mock draft, who's currently slated as their pick going to the Angels, and their argument is that he's one of the most major league ready pitchers that could be available at that point in the draft. What's your opinion on your Savage, and if he does get drafted hypothetically, could you see him on that fast track? And I know you said that the philosophy is going to change a little bit in Anaheim. But with that being said, this is an organization that hasn't had a front end of the rotation guy in about a decade, really.
Yeah, I don't think Savage brings that, and I think he is a very good player. And I think this is a tough thing to explain to explain is, every year there are 30 clubs that take 5 guys on the rotation. Finding a starting pitcher on the amateur market or through development is very hard. It's almost as hard as finding a starting catcher or starting shortstop because there's only 30 starting shortstops across the majors, and not all of them are really starting shortstop. So finding a legitimate shortstop, finding a legitimate catcher, or finding a legitimate starting pitcher is a very hard thing to do. And I think Trey Savage has the ability to be, I wouldn't call him a frontline starter, but someone that I feel comfortable saying is going to go out, be an above average league performer, sit there at a 110, 115 ERA plus for you and have a few years where, maybe an all-star year somewhere in there, but go out there, throw 150 to 200 innings for you every year and go out and produce. What would a league average ERA be? 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, something like that?
Nowadays, yeah, that'd be great nowadays.
Right. So, 200 innings of a 3.8 ERA, analytically a 3-WAR, 3-win pitcher, and you get that, I think you walk away really happy. And I think Trey Savage has that. He's got a great fastball. The splitter is, oh my gosh, a real weapon. His ability to throw strikes. I think he's the frame, the body, everything. I think Trey Savage is definitely someone that has a safety net. There's a little violence in the arm, but every pitcher gets hurt, right? Every pitcher is violent. Throwing is a violent motion. It's not something the body should be doing. So, I think it's a little bit safe. It's a safety net, and he is definitely the next best pitcher. Chase Burns, Hagen Smith, 1, 2. No matter what order you put him in, I actually put Hagen Smith above Chase Burns personally, because I don't go straight to the injury risk, and that's the only reason I do that. But Trey Savage, right there on that mark, and a right-handed, performance-wise, it's strictly based on performance. What I thought the Angels would get out of Reed Detmers is what I think Trey Savage will be for whoever gets him. An above-average league starter that's going to have some peak years and be very, very valuable for your rotation.
Yeah, I think the reason why a lot of Angels fans might be kind of shy and scared if the Angels were to go, with a pitcher 8th overall, I think is the fact that the last couple like high draft picks they've had at pitcher haven't necessarily panned out just yet, right? We didn't get to see Kai Busch fully develop because he was part of that trade. I think that's a move that's going to haunt the Angels for years. Getting rid of Cuero and getting rid of Kai Busch, both guys who had promise, and unfortunately just didn't work out. Reed Detmers hasn't fully been able to put it together for an extended period of time. Reed Detmers, very talented. We've all seen the flashes. This guy could be, I think, a solid number 1. I don't want to call him an ace, because the term ace, I believe, is overused. There's so few aces, but there's a lot of number 1 guys. And Detmers could be that. When Griffin Canning was drafted, a lot of people were like, hey, this guy could be a solid number 2 in a rotation. And I don't think that's out of the question for a guy like Griffin Canning. But once again, another guy hasn't been able to put it together for long periods of time. Sandoval, the list does go on. These guys are good number 3, number 4s in a rotation, but the Angels have just not been able to get that number 1 in the rotation, even on the free agency market for a while, TVW.
But you mentioned it. How many aces are there in baseball? I mean, legitimate, true number 1s. There's not 30 of them. Not every team has them, right?
I'd say there might be 7 to 8.
Exactly. And that number is slightly increasing. But yeah, Paul Skeens, right? Absolutely, yeah. Sure. That's the capability. But you don't have a chance at Paul Skeens. So yeah, Chase Burns and Hagen Smith both have that upside. Absolutely, they have that upside. But like I was saying, how hard is it to develop a starting pitcher? Not a frontline starting pitcher, but just a starting pitcher, just someone that's going to be in your rotation for the rest of his career. And the fact that Reed Detmers is a rotation member and Griffin Canning are rotation members. I mean, Sam Bachman, they're going to keep trying until they can't, but number 9 overall pick is going to be a reliever more than likely, right?
Yep.
And if you look through the history of the draft, most first round pitchers are not starting pitchers. They end up in the majors, but they end up in the majors as relievers. And it's all, every team attempts this. And you look at Atlanta, I think Atlanta's like 6-7 years straight of first rounders with pitchers, and half of those guys are relievers. I mean, and it's not that there's anything wrong with that, but look at Colby. I always use Colby Allard. Colby's not great because he was smaller, but it's like you go through all these things, and even the teams that are the best at developing pitchers, the Dodgers drafted Grant Holmes, the Braves drafted Colby Allard. These guys are up and down arms. Arms are really hard to stay on top of. And it's not that Trey is Savage or Chase Burns or Hagen Smith or, William Schmidt or any of these high schoolers are going to be bad, but baseball is hard and pitching is hard and hitting's hard. So I think, developing a legitimate starting pitcher and having confidence in it, you kind of have to take that risk. And as much as I disagreed with the Sam Bachman pick, and I like Sam as a kid, but as much as I disagreed with that, taking that chance is really a hard thing to kind of skip on. So if it is Trey Savage or it's Hagen Smith on the board, I think it's something that you almost risk it, even though they aren't everyday players.
So I want to close it out with these quick questions here. So how do you feel about the draft lottery so far? Now that we've seen it for a couple years, you like it?
Nah, it's not my thing. I mean,
Okay.
I don't think it prevents,
Tanking.
I don't think it really prevents it. I mean, Cleveland was in a playoff race in late August. Like they really were, and then they have the number 1 pick. Cincinnati actually had a pretty good year last year.
This year too, right? Cleveland.
Yeah, no, if you're the worst team, you should get the first pick. It's plain and simple for me. I'm not like opposed to it. I don't think it's the worst thing that's ever happened. And I think they're trying to find entertainment value in the draft, which I find, it's a niche thing and it's very entertaining if you're in that niche, but trying to, produce to the masses, it's fine. It's not my gig, but whatever.
And I feel like I kind of know your answer to this one, but so Major League Baseball's tried something different with the last couple draft where they've been pairing it with the All-Star game and the All-Star festivities, and they set up a stage and they invite fans and they try to make it very much like the NFL draft. And you have fans who are sitting there watching this guy who you're probably not going to see for 3 or 4 years. Yet they're trying to build the excitement. Like, hey, this guy, great guy out of West Virginia, blah, 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 blah. They're trying to make it a thing. How do you feel about this thing they're trying to create?
I love that.
Okay.
If they did it a month prior.
Okay. So
College World Series ends tomorrow, and we're 3 weeks away from the draft, which means most of the guys getting drafted saw their collegiate season end 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that, 3-4 weeks ago. So that means they're going to be 7-8 weeks removed from playing baseball and getting drafted. High school kids, similar situation, unless you're playing out in the northeast or something, right? I love the concept of trying to make the draft a thing, make it fun, and it is fun. And I think if more people got involved, it'd be even more fun. I love having it as a stage and having these kids show up and suit and tie and celebrating it. It's great. I actually didn't hate it when it was out at MLB Studios out in Jersey. It didn't bother me, but yeah, why not? It's great. Honor these kids and have them have a good time and promote them and say, 3 years from now, this is a star, even if it's not the case, right? But I love that. Just the date of the draft is so stupid. It's so dumb. Just put it back towards, put it back a month, man. Like, it's awful.
I also like that most of the teams are playing that day. You know what I mean? So it's
It's a yeah. No, I love the attempt.
the show The
I
show.
love the show. Try and grow it. Put it on ESPN. Put it on network. Put it on 5 cable stations. Whatever. I don't care. But please move it back to its original date for the
Okay.
sake of the kids, not for the sake of us. For the sake of the players.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. And last thing I got for you here, because I gotta just I gotta give you a little bit of a hard time. All right. So the Dodger City Connect jerseys 2.0. What the hell? Did you like them?
I don't know. I didn't go to Dodger, right? Um, I've decided to wait until I see it on the field. I watched some of that game, but not enough to where I in-law weekend kind of thing. So, um, that kind of deal. But no, like everyone hated the Phillies, the Phillies one, right? And I was like, oh, wait till I see it on the field. I see it on the field. I'm like, yeah, it looks like a softball uniform, but it's really cool. I didn't like the Angels one when I first saw it, and then I saw it on the field. And I'm like, yeah, that thing's awesome. That's their best jersey in years. I don't know. It doesn't. I think you could have gone a ton of different directions. City of LA has so much artistic culture, a lot of things. Um, Seems pretty stinking boring just looking at it. Um, but who knows? I don't know. The City Connect thing, I there's certain things you don't toy with, right? Yankees don't have a nameplate on the back. It's pinstripes. It's gray. It says New York or NY. You don't toy with it. The Red Sox, right? That yellow and light blue thing, that City Connect for the Red Sox. What is that? You know, maybe I'm missing. Maybe I'm missing something, and I'm okay with that. But it's like no, like if you have a history and you have like, I think the White Sox have the best uniforms in baseball. And I will say their City Connect uniform is actually pretty stinking cool. But you just don't toy with it. The Dodgers have had that jersey for how long, right? Like, don't toy with it. Like, just keep it simple. Red number, white print, on the road, gray print, whatever. I don't know. If you want to sell a different kind of jersey, make it a especially here in LA, right? And for this goes for the Angels too in Anaheim, but like a Mexican heritage night or a Japanese heritage night and not they do these things, right? These are theme nights. Throw a jersey in there once a year, right? And have it be consistent. But a Korean night, a Native American, Indigenous people heritage night jersey, a Black History jersey. Okay, so like Kansas City, they're the one team that I'd sit there and be like, okay, use the Monarchs uniform during Black History Month. And I know the Black History Month, I think it's February, so it's a little bit, but it's like, yeah, if you want to honor Negro Leagues, wear the Monarchs jersey. Like that's cool because it's all Kansas City and St. Louis and stuff and all that. But it's like, we didn't have Negro League teams out here in Anaheim or LA. So I don't know.
We had a lot of PCL teams.
Yeah, that'd be cool if you could go back. But it's like maybe I'm a knucklehead and I'm okay with that. But like, I'd rather see you honor your city's heritage through cultures that are involved. New York has Puerto Rican history, right? And incredible Cuban and Puerto Rican and Dominican, right? And it's known for a lot of things over there, and Italian, right? In New York. So why don't you honor that kind of stuff? That's cool. I would love if New York honored that culture. LA has an insane Spanish culture, a Mexican and Spanish culture, and a very large, growing Asian culture and different culture. It's not just Japanese and Chinese, but like Korean and Taiwanese, and like honor that stuff. That's cool. I'd love to see that kind of stuff. So I don't, City Connect. It's not just the Dodgers. I don't know. If you're gonna honor something, honor it.
With the "Get off my lawn, old man yells at cloud" moment yet again on the show. Hey,
that's fine. I'll live with it.
That's fair. That's fair. TBW, thanks for joining us. I appreciate your time. Where can our audience follow you on social media and find your great articles?
Yeah, I think it's printed on here at Taylor Blake Ward. That's on X, Twitter, whatever it is now these days. Whatever Elon decided, and work with the Sporting Tribune, sportingtribune.com, thesportingtribune.com. I've messed that up, but we've got a great staff. I'm really happy with the staff that we brought in on the baseball side. I'm just running baseball director of baseball operations on the site. So you might hate it as an Angels fan, but I'm going to have some Dodgers coverage, and I apologize up front, but that's, I have a job. Like, sorry, it's just part of my job, but, we'll have Dodgers, Padres, Angels, especially, and just really happy with it. So sportingtribune.com.
All right. Well, Taylor, once again, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you. And hopefully maybe we can have you on after the draft and we can talk about what happened. And if not, any other time you're free, you let us know. On behalf of all of us here at Halos in the Infield, thanks again, Taylor, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everybody.